Today we'll be tasting Old Granddad 114. Welcome to KIllco Whiskey Musings. My name is Brian, and as of this recording, I am only 10 subscribers away from 500. So if you could please like and subscribe, that would help me and the channel out tremendously. At some point, I'm going to remember all of this, but not yet. If you happen to have this whiskey, I hope you will join me on this tasting experience. If not, please pour one of your favorite whiskeys, and I do hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Once again, I'd like to remind everyone that it is National Bourbon Heritage Month. This doesn't have a tab. Oh, why must this be so? This has lost some points for difficult plastic. What is it saying? National Bourbon Heritage Month. So you will be seeing a lot of bourbon from me and probably every single other whiskey tuber on here. But really, I don't need an excuse to drink more bourbon. I wanted to show this before I forgot. Look at that proof. 57%. This is going to be a whopper. So prepare yourselves if you're drinking along with me. I've gotten into the weird habit, which I still don't think I'll ever get used to, of having a whiskey before I have whiskey. Ooh, okay. That was different. What size is that cork? I have looked up a little bit about this. I'll talk about it later, but this is a Beam Suntory project, but Beam Suntory product. But you would have a hard time finding much about it since it's not listed on the Jim Beam website or almost anywhere else. It's weird. I did a video of an Old Granddad product, what feels like a very long time ago, but I will link that up there. It's the Old Granddad Bottle and Bond, I think. I should check. I'm not going to. We begin with the color. I don't know why I turned into Snape there for a second. But here we are. This looks lovely to me. Color, I would say... I really want to say amber, but it's not quite dark enough for me to say amber. A golden amber. There, that's nice in between. The clarity is clear. Sediments, I do not see any from my perspective. And the legs, well, at this proof, it would be really funny if it didn't have them, and it definitely has a bunch of them. It's glorious. As I said, I have had Old Granddad Bottle and Bond before, and I feel like I've had this at one point. I may have bought it and drank the whole thing and just never did a video. That has happened with a lot of bottles I have enjoyed, and I'll have to go back to them someday. But for the moment, I will enjoy maybe bringing up some memories of having this. Again, my memory is terrible. Begin nosing technique. Oh. Ooh. I can actually smell the char on this from the oak. Or from the barrel. Brown sugar sweetness, as to be expected. Difficulty getting past the alcohol smell. But again, neck pour, keep that in mind. Always. There's some rich caramel notes on here too. I'm ready for this. I'm preparing myself mentally and physically for this experience. It's gonna be great. I hope it's gonna be great. Ooh, I just thought of brownies. Oh god, I want brownies now. You know, there's a note a lot of other channels have said that I find very difficult to latch onto. But I know a lot of people get a nutty note on Jim Beam products. And I'm convincing myself there might be a nutty note on this. Exactly which nut? Not sure. However, that is a rarity in my case. But I wouldn't be surprised if I did find it on a Jim Beam product. Or Beam Suntory product, I should say. Totally different thing. Oh, that was wonderful. I just thought of one of my favorite desserts. It's not creme brulee. Tiramisu. Ugh. Yeah, this is a hefty boy. And I'm getting kind of a coffee vanilla vibe from it. Nosing phase 2. The intensity of this is actually 2. When I first took a snifter of it, or when I began nosing the whiskey, it didn't jump out and punch me in the face or anything. I actually had to pause and look for it a bit. Age, I would say moderate. I tend to say that with all bourbons, since I typically think bourbons can go from 2 to 4 to 10 years, and that could be called young, but I'd like to think 10 years is the sweet spot, and I would call that moderate. And this might have been that. It might be a mix of something. I really don't know. I don't think that hard about my whiskeys. I just enjoy them. Enjoy the experience. Google's your friend. I had to look up straight bourbon whiskey because I blanked out. There's one that means 4 years plus, and there's one, or at least 4 years, and the one that means 2 straight, if I'm reading this right, for at least 2 years. So this is technically a younger one, but it also has no age statement. The barrel is new oak because it's a bourbon. Grain, definitely corn, and I assume malt. But then I always wonder what the next one is. I'm cheating. I looked at the grain mash bill for this, and it looks like it doesn't say the 114, but considering it's saying the same exact thing for the Old Granddad and the Old Granddad Bottle of Bond, I'm going to tell you it is 63% corn, 27% rye, which is quite a chunk, and then 10% barley. A high rye whiskey, which I couldn't actually tell on the nose, but it is a lot of corn too. Smoke? None. Spice? Coffee was definitely in this one, along with a little bit of clove. I don't remember saying cinnamon. I did say brown sugar. I did say vanilla. My memory's terrible. Sweet, there are a few of them. Vanilla. Caramel. I remember saying it was a caramel. I think I said there was caramel. If only I could rewind my brain. It doesn't work that way for me. There was a bit of a chocolate note. I did say brownies. And oh god, brownies. Floral. I am not finding anything distinctly floral about this. Wine. Ooh. Fruit. I don't get any fruit out of this. This is just a straight up rich, like hefty bourbon without really all the frills. I'm looking for fruit. Coming up empty. I'm looking at the last three here and getting a bit meh. Sulfur. I'm not getting anything specifically sulfur-ish. However, on my initial impression, there was that char note from the barrel. At least I'm assuming we had char note from the barrel. Peat, this is not a scotch, so I'm going to say no. Earth, this is always a fun spot for bourbons. Nutty, I did say nutty. And I am detecting a slight hay note, as if I was in a barn. And I don't know if it's because I looked up the amount of corn that's in this, but I am thinking of corn. Like sweet corn. I'm too prone to suggestions when I look things up. I shouldn't do that, but I do, because my mind, I have to know as soon as I go, wait, what? Let us begin. That is spicy. Oh. First sip, just drink it, don't think about it. Enjoy the experience. Share the experience with me. Let us meditate. I don't know what I'm doing. From the first sip, I can see this is hot. This is a good bourbon. It is not as sweet as I expected, and it didn't burn me as much as I thought it would. But I feel that is also because I've been having a whiskey before my whiskey, which does seem to cut down on that. Oh gosh. Especially when I'm doing with higher proof immediately. I found that's not a good way to go into doing a tasting. It's just having the high proof thing first. I have to go in with something a little lower proof. And I'm okay with having to drink more whiskey. Let's be clear. I plan on putting water in this near the end just because I know it's hot. It's hot. But I will take another sip, leave it on my tongue for as long as I can bear, considering the proof, and then I'll move on to phase 2 of the whiskey tasting experience. Oh, instantly dry. A little bit of dark chocolate. Or was it milk chocolate? Spicy. Like cinnamon spices or clove. And leathery. Like my tongue just dries out immediately. What is that? There's something else. It's not really that sweet for a bourbon. I'm expecting a sweetness that I'm not exactly getting. It's a little sweet. We're talking minimal. It's kind of a rough and tumble bourbon, I have to admit. Well, Granddad was a fighter. That's what I'm going to say right now. Oh, it's not overwhelming, but it's not a sweet bourbon, not at all. Not to me. Yeah, very spicy. The tongue tingles are real right now. I feel like the same thing's happening to me now that sometimes happens with bourbons of this high proof, where the proof is getting in the way of everything else for me. So I'm going to add some drops of water, but first we're going to move on to phase 2 and see if that'll help me muddle through the initial taste of this specific bourbon. Palate phase 2. Flavor. It's a little bit sweet and it's a little bit bitter. Let's go with bittersweet. That makes sense, doesn't it? Of course, I should have just said that at the start. Proof on this? I am very tempted to say high. I'm very tempted to say high, even though high for me is supposed to be 60 plus. This one drinks like it's 60 plus. 60% plus 60, the high. 120 proof, in case you were unaware of that little bit of mathematical acrobatics. Body, I'm leaning towards 4. Texture of this is a little sharp because of the spiciness. This is tough. I guess heavy? I hate being so indecisive about this, but the texture is really nice to me. However, the minute you drink it and, have it sit on your tongue for even a few seconds, it gets super spicy. And it makes it sharp. It makes those little pinprick feelings on my tongue due to what I'm assuming is the high proof. Balance. Does any element dominate? Yes. The spicy, tingly feeling. It's hefty. It's got weight to it almost. Finish is long. I don't like saying that one very often, since finish is one of those things I have to wait for, take a sip and just be like da 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 da. And no one wants to do that when you're in. Well, at least in my case, I want to just keep sipping on the whiskey. I don't want to think about how long it's taking. But since I'm just doing this on purpose and rambling, and it's still there, I'm going to say 4. It's just fading now. And it was kind of a dry note at the end. That was mostly what was lingering. But now my saliva glands have reinstated themselves. Complexity is 3. I say that mainly because of how difficult this is to pick apart at this proof. I'm wondering if the complexity opens up a little bit with a little added water. Let's find out. I think I have about an ounce left in here. And I typically do 3 drops of water, and this is just tap water. Don't think it's any fancy water. 1, 2, 3. And while I stir this around a little bit, let it settle, we're going to look up a little more about this whiskey. The weird part about this was I had to go to the Beam Suntory Portfolio Guide to find out any real solid information about this, because trying to find the distillery or anything like that was overly complicated. It doesn't like telling me where this is from other than it's a Beam Suntory product. Part of me is tempted to do this with the old man voice and Old Granddad 114, but you wouldn't understand a word I'm saying, so I'm not doing that. Old Granddad 114 proof is bottled at barrel strength, delivering the full flavor of bourbon whiskey with notes of spicy characteristics of high percentage of rye in the bourbon mash. I should read before I speak. OGD 114 is truly a super premium bourbon in that it comes off the still lower than the other Old Granddad expressions at 127 proof. Really? The benefit? The lower the proof a spirit comes off the still, the more it retains the flavor from the grain. That's a very confusing statement. But I'm not going to think about it too much. I read it. You heard it. If it confuses you too, okay. If not, well, I'm clearly missing something. Let's get on to what it tells me about the tasting notes. Ugh. I should really read these beforehand, but I don't. Just for you. We both get to be surprised. The tasting notes, and this is just the taste, spicy and sweet with plenty of rye flavor. That was informative. Alright, I got annoyed by that little lack of anything. So I went to something I've used before. This is whisky.net. It's an app I use on my phone. It's a website you can use. It was being sketchy for a while, but that seems to have gone away. Very similar to what I was saying, but the nose profile is cinnamon, brown sugar, and vanilla, and caramel. This is exactly what I hear from almost every single bourbon I have. Flavors right up there as well, with cinnamon, pepper, brown sugar, caramel, and vanilla. Finish profile is cinnamon, pepper, spicy oak, and rye. And I'm going to read this last part because it kind of threw me off once I read it, since I know this is Jim Beam product. However, I also don't know if Basil Hayden is a Jim Beam product. I'm going to look that up now. Just learned something it is. That explains all this. And it says, Old Granddad was a distiller named Basil Hayden. Or Basil Hayden? Basil? Bill. Baz, who made his name by distilling a bourbon whiskey made with a higher percentage of rye. True. Baz Hayden passed along the art of distilling to his son, and then, in turn, to his grandson. It was the third generation's distiller, Colonel R.B. Hayden, who honored his grandfather by naming his justly famed whiskey Old Granddad. Well, there you go. Now we know how the man, the legend, on the label is. There he is. What a very distinct gentleman he is. No mustache, though. What the hell? And since I did add the water, I didn't forget. I almost forgot. It toned down the alcohol roughness of it. It's a little lighter, a little easier to sip on casually. Still good, but still very not exactly sweet. Mostly spice. Again, high rye bourbon. I may add a little bit more water to this, like 3 more drops, just to see what happens. It's still a good whiskey. I'm going to enjoy it, but it is not something I would pour as a simple sipper. simply because it's not quite my profile. It's not a sweet, enjoyable, creme brulee-esque bourbon. It's more rough coffee, dark chocolate. The sweet notes are barely there. It's like a little sweet and then just However, if you're into a little drier, spicy, high rye bourbons, well, this is probably right up your alley. And more importantly, if you can find it, I haven't seen it around as much these days, but it doesn't cost much. I picked this bottle up for about $26, and that is a bargain considering the proof, if nothing else. There you have it, folks. Old Granddad 114. Hell of a bourbon. I can definitely see an old granddad drinking this stuff. Please be sure to join me on Fridays and Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I do live streams. We drink whiskey, we chat, we relax, we just have a good time. We're still in a time where we can't exactly share our whiskey tasting experience in person as much, but for the live streams, it helps me, and I like to think it helps the viewers as well. Until next time, live long and prosper. Don't forget to be awesome, and I will see you out there. Thank you for joining me on KIllco Whiskey Musings. You can find my social media and Patreon in the links below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.